How's it going, everyone? My name is NuttyNu. I'm a videographer, director, producer in Anchorage, Alaska. I've been doing this for about 2 years, and I actually been doing this before this. I just been doing like personal video and stuff like that. But today I'm going to teach you guys 5 things you should know if you're starting to be, if you want to start doing videos, or if you want to start learning how to do videos. And these are all technical stuff that you should know before you grab the camera or whatever you're planning to use. So these are just 5 things. They don't go in any particular orders, just a random list that I put it together. And they are, number 1, you should know how to shoot manual. So don't shoot auto, don't shoot all these other things. You gotta know how to use manual. So that means you need to understand what shutter speed is. You need to understand what aperture f-stop does, what it do, how it affects your footage and stuff like that. And you need to understand ISO, whatever you want to call it. And you also need to understand what a ND filter can do, because all those play together in the role of exposing your proper footage. So make sure you understand those 3 things: f-stop, aperture, ISO. The next thing you guys need to know is that I see a lot of people do this mistake, is that they don't understand frame rate. So frame rate, what does that mean? Frames per second. Understand frame rate. Most standard frame rate is 24 in the cinematic world, 24 or like 23.97. Understand what frame rate does. 24 frames per second, 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, up to 120 and stuff like that. Especially if you're trying to make your video cinematic, you want to know what 24 frame and why to go with 24 instead of 30 frame per second or 60 frame per second. Biggest mistake is also people trying to slow down 24 frames per second, which is like a big no-no. So make sure you know what frame rate does, why you want to shoot 60 frames or higher if you want to just do like slow motion footage, creative slow-mo B-rolls and stuff like that. And once you understand frame rate, that will also play a factor to your first step, which is understanding shutter speed and stuff like that. The biggest mistake I also did, was I'm guilty of it too, was not understanding white balance. So make sure you understand white balance. So if you're a photographer and you shoot raw photos, white balance doesn't really matter, because you can always change your white balance if you're shooting raw photos. But when it comes to videos, you gotta know how to set your proper white balance, unless you're shooting like a $50,000 camera like the Red and all those cinematic camera where they can shoot raw footage video, where those bigger high-end cameras, they can actually go back and change the white balance, so they can set it to anything they want and they can go back and change it. But for like us folks that are using like mirrorless camera, DSLR and stuff like that, make sure you understand white balance, because once your white balance is set, it's really hard to go back and try to adjust it to what you want. Or you couldn't do it, but it's gonna cause more work in the post editing as far as like color grading, color correction and stuff like that. So make sure you understand white balance. Like I'm guilty of it, and I used to shoot like an auto white balance, and it was the bad things. My footage was looking yellow. It will always change from yellow to blue. So make sure you understand how to set white balance on your camera. Every camera is different. Make sure you pick up a gray car or a white car, whatever anyone you prefer. Know how to set the white balance on your camera. Most camera nowadays, you can set the white balance to what you want. The other thing is, know your camera's autofocus system. Know how good your camera can autofocus with the most light in the most darkest situation. Just know the AF system, like know how to use continuous focus. For Sony, know how to use autofocus. They have like the wide, the selective points and stuff like that. So just know your autofocus system on your camera. Know when to use it and when not to use it, and also know how to manual focus. I used to be like, man, I don't want to learn how to manual focus. It's freaking a lot of work. But once you learn how to manual focus, it's actually really fun, and it's actually really like control. You can control what you want. It's very, you're in charge of everything, and that's part of being able to shoot in manual, is knowing what you want to shoot and what you want in focus. So know how to use your autofocus, know when to rely on it, and know how much you could rely on it before you can start switching over to manual focus, or when you want to switch to manual focus and stuff like that. The last one is composition. If you're looking to do like a beautiful video, learn about composition. Same thing goes for photography. rules of thirds. Composition is a big factor. Know how to compose your photos. I see a lot of people that shoot on gimbals and they just kind of hold their gimbal and just kind of point it towards their subject or whatever, And sometimes that's okay if you're doing like event coverage where composition doesn't really matter. Like if you're shooting a concert and you just want to point at the crowds, it really doesn't matter how you compose it. But if you're like shooting a model or a subject, a car, and you want to compose it like on the lowest rule of thirds on the corner, make sure you have like a monitor, external monitor, or some way of looking at your video where you can compose it so that when you're recording that shot that you want in, what to move in or slide in or whatever, or if you're on a tripod, make sure you know how to compose your footage. So don't just go out and point your cameras at things and hope that, you know, your camera is going to get the shot that you want. Make sure you compose your shots. So those are the 5 things you should know. I think that's 5 things, right? Yeah, understanding how to use full manual, ISO f-stop shutter speed, understanding frame rate, understanding proper white balance, and knowing how to use autofocus, when to use manual focus, and composition. Those are the 5 things that you should know. And once you know those basic, you can go into more advanced stuff, and we'll talk more about that on next video. So hope you guys find this video useful. If you guys got any questions, drop it in the comment section below, or if you think you have anything that you can add onto this video to help newcomers or new videographers that want to learn things, drop in the comment section below so we can all learn together and go from there. So I'll see you guys next time, and talk to you later. Bye bye.